All right, let's kick this off. Welcome, everyone. My name is Mark Karahan, and I'm a venture development lead at KI Park. And on behalf of the entire KI Park team, I'm very happy to welcome all of you to today's Tech Talk. I think we have a very interesting topic today, titled ChatGPT, The End of Trust or a New Beginning. I'm also very happy to see and welcome all of our members that dialed in today's session. And for all of those who are not members of KI Park yet, I would like to inform you within a very quick overview about our network and what KI Park is. So, KI Park is a non-profit organization, and we're basically an ecosystem in which various members unite with the goal of accelerating European AI innovations. We are based in Berlin, but we operate across European borders. And originally, we launched in end of 2021 with 13 founding members. And now, roughly 1 year later, after opening our office space here in Berlin, we have already grown to more than 80 members, which comprise, as you can see by the logos, probably corporates, universities, startups, regulating organizations, other NGOs, so really representing the broad perspective that is necessary for applying AI at a large scale. At KI Park, we support our members with various services. So first of all, you can make new contacts, you can meet new partners from our broad network. You can also engage in new AI projects and innovation challenges to realize new use cases for AI. And moreover, we support you by showcasing the AI solutions that you develop or that have been developed by others to really sensitize for the opportunities of that technology. And we really put you on the stage here to put you on the map and realize the opportunities of AI. We also update our members on the latest AI news. We grant you access to such cool expert insight talks as today's Tech Talk on ChatGPT. And finally, we also offer various infrastructure services and give you access to the broad nexus of opportunities that are out there in the ecosystem. So if you'd like to learn more, I'm very happy to answer all your questions. So feel free to reach out on LinkedIn or just write me a mail. Click on our website. It's really open and I'm looking forward to all the discussions. That being said, I'm now very happy to hand over to Sebastian Hallensleben. I think, Sebastian, you were very like a lot of hats, so feel free to introduce yourself and kick off today's Tech Talk as the moderator. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mark, for the introduction, and also thank you to KI Park for hosting this conversation. And I'd like to say a very big thank you and a warm welcome to our guests today. First of all, to Claire Leibowitz, who heads AI and media integrity at the Partnership on AI, an activity that has predated the current buzz around ChatGPT by several years, and she'll explain a little bit more about that further down during this hour. I'd also like to welcome Michael Weber. He's the head of quality management at Yameda, a medical review platform, and therefore with a very particular and strong interest in trust, the core topic today. And finally, Emmanuel Kahemwe, who is the principal AI architect at VDE and also the CEO of VDE UK. He's the person who knows all the ins and outs from the technical perspective of ChatGPT and will, amongst other comments, provide an overview into what to expect from that technology over the coming few years. So I've got the honor to lead the moonshot for AI trust and disruption in KI Park. So today's Tech Talk has a broader context, a longer term context, and thank you again for hosting us here. So I'd like to kick off with 2 or 3 slides just to set the scene for our discussion. I assume that most of you who've joined us today will already know what ChatGPT is. So just as a quick reminder, ChatGPT has joined the family of generative AI technologies in December last year, but the family started earlier. So most of you, well, probably all of you, will be aware of deepfakes, which became broadly available at the end of 2018, and where, for example, it was possible to imprint the face of an actor onto the face of another person, making them draw a face or give a speech that they've never given in reality. We also had generative AI models that created faces, that created people. So the little snippet here is from thispersondoesnotexist.com, an NVIDIA demo, and also from virtualinfluencers.org. And finally, in the middle of 2022, we had a number of text-to-image tools come onto the scene. So in particular, tools like DALL-E, like Stable Diffusion, that process prompts such as, oh, can I have an avocado as a chair, and generated images like this one. So we have a whole family now of generative AI, and the buzz that has emerged over the past few months since December 2022 should really be seen in the context of all those together, even though ChatGPT is the latest and maybe even the most fascinating aspect of it. So I don't, the purpose today is not really to go into all the consequences of ChatGPT, but I'd like to span the spectrum of what it actually means and just how broad the disruption is, and that it truly is a disruption in a real sense rather than just in a buzzword sense. So yes, ChatGPT will take over much of copywriting, be it in advertising, be it in preparing speeches, opening speeches, closing speeches. ChatGPT will find its uses in industry to generate project brochures, to generate manuals or help with the generation of manuals, or for example, to produce compliance documentation. It'll play a role in journalism, in particular in what you could slightly disparagingly call low-end journalism, when it's about mass-produced articles, blogs, but also helping with research and trying to make sense and process large amounts of input material. ChatGPT and generative AI more broadly will play a massive role in education. So it's probably not exaggerated to say that essays are probably dead as an assessment method as of December 2022, because they can be auto-generated, and it's pretty much impossible for practical purposes to prove that something was AI generated, but also in teaching material and also providing online trainings, for example. Of course, we see the use of tools like ChatGPT in social media to generate news, both truthful and fake news, to generate comments on a massive scale if need be, and in fact to hold conversations. And again, we have that dimension of scalability there that makes it possible to hold hundreds, thousands of conversations without real people behind it. And that really takes us to one of the most problematic, but also most fascinating aspects of ChatGPT and its family, and that is the aspect of impersonation. I can generate people. I can generate the appearance of hundreds or thousands of people that are in reality non-existent, but follow my line, that maybe place comments that mirror my political leanings, or that place comments that mirror my opinions about the quality of certain products. And we see this on social media sites, we see it on dating sites, but we also see it in a more positive sense, and maybe it's not quite right to talk about impersonation here, in online education, where it's possible to deliver training material, hundreds and hundreds of hours, based on an AI version of a lecturer, rather than the lecturer having to produce all that content themselves. And of course, in the legal field, we have a tradition of large quantities of text being produced in legal submissions, in summaries. We also have a tradition of large amounts of information being processed and analyzed and summarized. Both are already starting to see use of ChatGPT and related tools. And finally, no list would be complete without also pointing to the potential, but also the dangers in scientific discoveries. Two sides of the coin would be drug discovery, but also, of course, discovery of new kinds of poisons, which could be relevant for biological weapons. So if you take all that together, this is a massive field, and just that one technology will create a massive impact onto society over the coming years. I'd like to conclude by highlighting three overarching consequences of this development. First of all, there was already that buzzword attention economy making the rounds and has been for a number of years. The observation has already been clear that attention is the scarce resource, not content, because the attention bandwidth that we have as human beings can't be scaled up. It is more or less finite, and the generation of content is much more scalable. This has now taken on another order of magnitude, because now I can generate content as text, as images that are used to need human time and human intervention for. That constraint falls away, and I can generate content pretty much in arbitrary quantities. And so the fact that attention is the scarce resource becomes even more relevant, and I think will drive a lot of the development of the digital space. Second consequence I'd like to highlight is the question of, well, who takes responsibility for that generated content as the author? Sometimes discussion revolves around, well, should we require some sort of transparency requirement and make it compulsory to highlight that, for example, a particular text has been generated by ChatGPT. But there are use cases where that's not really practical. Imagine a speech. Imagine the head of an organization delivering a speech. Today, they would deliver a speech that was written for them by one of their team, typically, or by a ghostwriter. Tomorrow, they would deliver a speech that was written by ChatGPT. In both cases, they will not go on stage and say, well, you know, I didn't write this speech myself. This was someone from my team, or this was ChatGPT. Of course, they would take responsibility for the text that they're delivering on stage as the author of that text. And therefore, a simple kind of transparency or a simple labeling requirement might not quite be enough. And finally, and this is really the focus of today's discussion, trusting anything or anyone in the digital space becomes really, really hard. It used to be hard already. Now it becomes even harder because I can generate pretend people, I can generate content, and it's very, very hard to tell what is a real person, what is not a real person, what is content generated by a real person, and what is not. And with this very rough walkthrough of some of the aspects that are relevant for ChatGPT, I'd really like to turn to you, Claire. I teased at the beginning that you've been working on AI and media integrity before it became a buzzword. Could you provide us with an overview of what was the motivation behind it, and what's the general direction you're taking there?
Sure, and thank you, Sebastian, for that introduction. It prompted many of the key conundrums in a concise way. So thank you, and thank you to KI Park for having me. So I'll start by describing a bit of the Partnership on AI's origin story, which conveys some of the tactical approaches we take to AI governance and also the breadth of the challenge area. So the Partnership on AI was founded in 2016, which in the AI ethics space makes us veterans, by the heads of AI research at some of the largest technology companies. So Facebook at the time, Apple, Amazon, DeepMind, IBM, Microsoft, and Google. And these were the heads of AI research. So they grew up together as computer scientists, going to the same conferences, and now took on these positions, but recognized that the societal impact of the technology transcended not only the technology industry, but also broader sectors. So very quickly, the institution became multi-stakeholder, meaning that our membership now includes over 100 partners from civil society organizations in the US, like the ACLU or Amnesty International, for example, who think about societal impact, media institutions like the New York Times or the BBC, and other aspects of industry like OpenAI and other institutions. So not totally far off KI Park's logic around, broadening the tent to get people involved. But the mandate of the institution was to come up with best practices for AI governance. And the way that we do that is by convening the community, both as a way to kind of cross-pollinate and also as a mechanism for driving methodologically to those inputs and outputs, as well as to do research and offer substantive recommendations to the space. And we realized a few years ago that there was an area really ripe for this multi-stakeholder attention, one that would affect the veracity of media at a media institution, one that would affect trust in information more broadly. And we described that at the time as AI-generated content. And I loved your overview, Sebastian, because it talked about all the different prongs of life that impacts. And to us, that implied that we need all of these institutions at the table in order to drive towards solutions. So at the time, 4 years ago, we hosted a dinner with OpenAI at Dates Us, where we talked about GPT-2, which was a large language model that was way less powerful than ChatGPT, but has many of the same ethical questions that were being debated at that time, whether or not we should open that model to the public because of potential misuses, whether there should be this reckoning in the computer science field about societal impact. We also were working in the deepfake space, so the AI-generated media realm, thinking about the difference between AI-generated material that may mimic Claire Leibowitz from just manipulated imagery that we already saw, which might just slow down a video or use really unsophisticated mechanisms for doing so. And I want to underscore that from your kind of aperture, Sebastian, we took the perspective that there's something to be excited about from this technology and also something to be nervous about, and that you can maintain this, as our colleagues from a video and human rights organization called Witness described, this notion of preparing and not panicking for the technology. But of course, the sense of urgency has become a bit more palpable as these technologies have become more ubiquitous. So the thing that I'll just describe really quickly that encapsulates how we do our work, over the past year, we've put together a framework, a set of recommendations, a policy, if you will, a set of voluntary standards that we just launched last week called PAI's Responsible Practices for Synthetic Media. I can drop the link in the chat. And we launched that with 10 initial institutions that are kind of a microcosm of the broader generative media field. OpenAI, Adobe, Bumble, the dating app, the BBC, the CBC for media, Witness, this video and human rights global organization, and then 3 synthetic media startups and TikTok. And the idea was that we could provide, through our multi-stakeholder aperture, through our work over the past few years on deepfake detection, which are the mechanisms for technically detecting this technology, which are very flawed and limited, we could move from that and put together this framework for institutions who are both developing the technology for things like DALL-E, which is the text-to-image system that OpenAI put out and Sebastian alluded to alongside ChatGPT, those creating and those distributing. And distributors can include both publishers and social media platforms. And to us, we felt that there needed to be an assertion of shared values and norms, and then distinct practices depending upon the type of institution who is impacting this space. So what I loved about Sebastian's overture, I guess, to this conversation is that each of those institutions might want to borrow the same values and principles around, transparency and disclosure and consent, more than just do no harm. And at the same time, a dating app may have different operationalization of those principles than a news organization. So if I'm the BBC, I might be thinking about an AI avatar replacing a news broadcaster, but I also might be thinking about how to verify that videos coming into my newsroom are actually real evidence. But if I'm a dating app really concerned about empowering women online, I might be concerned about how someone might use visual depiction of those women to weaponize it in the form of a deepfake, and think about technical solutions that might include some poisoning in the data that might make it harder to do that. So to us, by bringing all of these institutions together, you not only better get a sense of the socio-technical impact of the technology, as well as the myriad domains in which it affects, but in doing so, you can put forth this kind of rapid response framework or set of guidelines that might inform capital R regulation down the line, which is very important, and be able to more swiftly put out these kind of very attuned to the real world impact guidelines that represent a more global take on the field.
Thank you very much, Claire, for the comprehensive overview. But by the way, to everyone listening, the chat should be open. So any questions, any comments you have, just type them into the chat, and we'll weave them into the conversation as we move along. And I'd like to kind of move over from a comprehensive approach that tries to cover the diversity of the various sectors and the various organizations over to a very specific use case, if you like, looking at Michael and Yameda, and a very specific challenge that is nevertheless highly relevant for some fundamental rights. And I believe you're going to give us a quick walkthrough, also kicking off with a picture of what Yameda actually is, because not everyone here might know. So over to you, Michael.
Yes. Thank you, Sebastian, for the introduction and for mentioning those fundamental problems that we are sharing also in the field of the economic part of our discussion here. And I will give you a short overview what we are doing at Yameda for all of you who doesn't know. Just a second, I share my screen. Now you can see it.
Yep, it looks good.
Okay, this is just a chart who describes the idea, the perfect idea of a patient who are using Yameda as a platform. Where Yameda is the biggest platform for doctors and patients for connecting both. We understand us as broker in the middle of both sides, and we offer at the first step a feature which helps the patients to find the right doctor. This is the search part. Then, in the best case, the doctor offers at our platform appointments for booking. In the next part, it is possible to visit the doctor with a video in a video session. And in the end, we are more in the future. It's not really built to the end, but the idea for the future for further developments is to support patients on the whole way to their healing. Yeah, that's the ideal journey if we are describing it. And the part of reviews is here in the first step and also in the last step. So in the first step, it helps patients, reviews helps patients to find the right doctor. That's just a simple idea. Where Yameda was founded in 2007, we have covered only this first part here, the search part. And in the end, if the patient was hopefully healed by the doctor, he will write a review on the platform. So it could be help. His own experience helps other patients in the future to find the right one, and then it goes back to the circle. And the special thing that we here have, you can imagine, is that we are the patients who are searching for a doctor and who are using our platform are very interested that the content from other users are true. It's not fake. It has to be true, and it's a special case. It is a common situation for all review platforms, of course. But in our special case, in terms of health, in terms of find the right doctor, I would say it has a way more. It is way more important to offer only true content, because the implications if you are selecting wrong doctor based on wrong reviews is way more higher than, for example, if you are searching on Amazon for a new vacuum cleaner or so. Yeah, so that's the point why we are very interested in developing our methods to detecting fake, and that's the reason why ChatGPT and other AI tools are very interesting and big challenge for us. Yeah, that's a short introduction for our situation. And what is also very important to mention here is that if you're talking about fake reviews, there are many different types of fake. Yeah, that's not only the one case. So, for example, the most common case is a doctor, in our case, buys fake reviews on a agency platform, and of course, it's obviously that this type of content is not okay. But there are many other types. So often it is the content comes from true patients, from real patients, but is influenced by the doctors. That's also another case. For us, in any case, the first question we have to ensure is, comes the review from a true patient? So this is the first question that we have to clear up. And yeah, that's the topic we are talking about here.
Thanks, Michael, for the kind of real life insight into what it means in a day-to-day situation for a patient that for a platform that brokers the contact between doctors and patients. And I believe currently, if a doctor buys fake reviews from a review broker, the going rate is somewhere around €10 per fake review, because the broker has to pay someone, a person, to write that fake review. Well, that's what it used to be like, but with tools such as ChatGPT, it becomes a lot easier and cheaper, and therefore we have to expect a flood, or even an even bigger flood of fake reviews. I'd like to bring in Emmanuel, bring you into the conversation, because you have been following the possibilities from a technical perspective of generative AI for several years, and I also distinctly remember the very first demonstration that you've given me on how to auto-generate Twitter posts with just a few lines of prompts, and that was quite a strong statement, should I say. So what I'm actually curious about is where do you see the evolution of tools like ChatGPT going over the next 3 to 5 years? And I realize that 3 years is already a really a big time horizon in this context, because we're seeing massive progress month by month. But what can we expect to see in 3 years' time on this?
Okay, thank you for bringing me, Sebastian. So with regard to these tools, they've surprised even the people within the field, to be honest. There are two camps who are, even within the AI field, the AI researchers. There are those who are directly working on these live models within big companies like OpenAI. And then there's AI researchers who are in academia who don't have access to these huge models, so to speak. And so I remember when I first heard that ChatGPT was released, I was like, okay, I know what to expect, because I've worked on this for quite a while. And then it took one of my colleagues who we worked together on Amazon Alexa prize, saying that no, they've actually done something that is worth paying special attention to here. And I guess this kind of feels like even within the research community, the pace of progress sometimes even surprises people within it, because I would have said that this was still maybe at least 2 years away, which many people thought capabilities like this were 10, 15 years away. I was like 2 years away, and that's a pretty optimistic estimate. And so seeing this last November was surprising. And this is what I have to say. The timeline has been pulled forward quite a bit. I remember the demo that I gave to you, Sebastian, was based on, in fact, it was based just on a specialized version of ChatGPT, of GPT-2, actually. I think it was a GPT-2 model. And even there, with some prompting, you can get some useful results out. But the flexibility, and that's the thing, is that the flexibility of the model was, in terms of engaging with it, there was a higher bar, so to speak. You needed to know a little bit more about what kind of data it was trained on, how to prompt it or talk to it in a particular way to get the results that you expected from it. And crucially, for that, you needed to be a bit of, let's say, more knowledgeable about how these type of AI models work, so to speak. So you need to be somebody who had experienced or worked with them for a while, or received guidance from somebody who knows what they're doing with such a model. With ChatGPT, what changed is that the barrier dropped significantly, such that somebody who has no background in this can just sit behind a keyboard and get useful stuff out of it. It's not to say these models weren't useful before, it's just that the barrier now with ChatGPT for a huge range of, like a broad spectrum of use cases, dropped to the point where you don't need a specialist anymore. And that changes things significantly. So a lot of, and interestingly, changes things in a way that I don't think anyone in the AI field was aware of, including the people at OpenAI. I am from discussions with some of my colleagues, it became clear that they were kind of, when they initially released this as a demo, they were expecting some noise, but nothing at the scale of 100 million users in 2 months, so to speak. Like that's not what they expected. They expected oh yes, we're going to make the AI community pay attention, but the rest of the world ended up paying attention too. So projecting forward, again, this could be very optimistic. I'd say this is 3 years away, and then it happens in the next 6 months, given the amount of money being funneled into this area. I would say that the kind of work that I've started seeing right now, because I'm currently reviewing in a lot of these conferences, is getting these tools, because we're now able to get them to interact with us in a somewhat useful manner. We are also training some of these tools to learn to use other tools, they say machine learning based tools. So the one track that I've seen prominently in the conferences, mind you, it's been 2 months. And within that 2 months, there's been 2 conference deadlines with some of the top. This is ICML and Europe's. And in there, I have seen 2 pieces of work that are pushing on using these language models, not just to, hey, write me a poem or write me a news article or write me this, but also in the aspect of doing this or doing this task of writing or delivering a piece of content, they call an API, as in they're using a digital tool to make sure that they can do it correctly, because it's easier to use, for example, a calculator directly to calculate whether 2 times 2 is equal to 4, rather than have a language model do that, because language models are not particularly good at, let's say, numerical tasks. So instead, they call a calculator, and the calculator does the task, and then return the result to you, which is a very interesting dynamic here, because now we're talking about these tools that are learned from data, that are easily scalable, also being able to use the kind of tools that we already use. And so I imagine that this is going to be one of the key areas that is going to lead to a lot of development, because I can, even looking forward on language models themselves, I expect them to get better at what they do, but fundamentally, the capabilities that I think are going to be really breakthrough in this area are when they start using a lot of the tools that we're also using in the digital space. And that means that if they're using these tools, then thinking about the access mechanisms and the way of ensuring safety for this becomes much more difficult, because you're saying that, oh yeah, we're going to just detect if it's written by an AI model. What if it's written by an AI model, they decide to spell check it with another AI model or rephrase it with another AI model? These AI models can, in on themselves, adapt to the environment, so to speak, and be able to, for example, bypass or learn to use the tools that we use to check, if content is real or not. Interestingly, on the side of this is that a lot of I guess the knowledge workers who think that these tools are not good enough yet, I would have to say that that is just a matter of time, because this is something of active interest to a huge research community with a lot of funding working on this problem day by day. So I expect that a lot of these things that people assume that, oh yes, it's not good enough, we can still somewhat figure out how to tell a difference between, when an AI tool is being used or not. I'm saying that that's not going to last for very long. So I expect that to disappear in the next 3 to 5 years.
So that's actually interesting, because you're saying, well, those language tools will, those tools such as ChatGPT will not just be used to generate text, but to be your, well, kind of your buddy who answers questions and who knows how to pull answers to those questions in different ways, pulling in other tools, and almost being like a broker between you and the, well, and the internet at large, which then also poses additional questions around trust, because you're not just having to trust the output that is generated, but you're also having to trust the judgment of ChatGPT, which other tools to bring in, and how good they are. And I actually wonder, and that's maybe a question for you, Claire, whether the codes of conduct that you've developed at Partnership on AI would need to be broadened, would need to be extended if those language models take on this additional broker role, or trusted broker role, if you like.
And focused on, can you hear me okay?
Now we can, yes.
Okay, great. I'll first just start by saying our document, the framework we put out, is just on audio-visual generative content. So we made the discrete decision to differentiate some of the unique affordances of audiovisual content from language. So the first thing is to say our policymaking is that granular, even though it might be precedent setting for language models. We also wanted there to be something distinct about the medium. So that's the first thing to say. The second is that, yes, this only scratches the surface of the ethical conundrums brought forth even by the current classes of language models, as well as the future ones that Emmanuel, I think, very eloquently described. We have to have some degree of humility around. And the idea for us is that, one, there should be regulation, but accompanying that, we might be able to capture different case examples that describe the breadth of those technical changes and the impact. One of the commitments of those in the framework is to share a case example each year about implementation. And the idea is that will move us from this kind of constitution landscape to more of a law landscape, even in the soft power realm of governance, but also that this can be an input into policymakers, educating them about the different ethical conundrums, educating about the roles of the different stakeholders. And as the models get more sophisticated, that might require us to tweak our recommendation around disclosure, for example, or consent, or to reimagine certain aspects of it. So right now, we have a very strong conviction that satire, for example, should be exempt from many of the ramifications of these policies, because we want to empower people to use this technology to speak truth to power, to express themselves. But if a lot of our members said that if the technology becomes much more sophisticated in the near term, maybe we need to reimagine that exemption, because there might be bad actors hiding behind it. and it will be too hard to differentiate intent based on how much flooding of, you know, satirical and harmful content there is in the wild. So that's an example of the sensitivity to the changes that we can only, you know, anyone can pontificate about their prediction, and we should be prepared for that. But there also needs to be some both humility and nimbleness in the policymaking process, both regulatory and beyond, that allows us to respond to technical evolution. So the short answer is yes, increased sophistication might warrant a reimagining of certain guidelines and their restrictiveness or recommendations. And at the same time, that shouldn't keep us from putting things out into the world as precedent for those eventual recommendations, and also as a way to better document and experiment with policies before the cat's out the bag. Part of the reason we've been so, you know, both allergic and heartened by the trendiness of ChatGPT is we've been working on this for a few years. Imagine we were just starting now. So while yes, GPT-2 was very different, as Emmanuel said, many of the same ethical conundrums were there a few years ago, and getting a head start and planning for this more sophisticated future is extremely important from our end.
Yeah, it's actually quite very, very satisfying, and I think that applies to the small select circle of people who've been working on this for a number of years, to suddenly see everyone paying attention, and the years of awareness raising finally coming to fruition in a way. There's a comment in the chat which is a good question, and I'm going to kind of pass it over to you, Michael, even though that's a little bit unfair. So there's a comment saying, well, if the digital place makes it increasingly hard to trust anyone, why do we continue to spend our times there instead of limiting it to special issues and spending more time in the offline world? And it seems to me, in particular, when we talk about the interaction between patient and doctor, that is still in many cases a physical offline interaction. Why would traditional methods, if you like, of word of mouth, kind of a physical word of mouth, that word gets round, oh, this doctor is good, this doctor is bad. Is there a way of strengthening that those traditional mechanisms as well, or maybe also interlinking them with a digital mechanism, so that the digital mechanisms get grounded in reality rather than having to just exist and be verified on the digital side?
Yeah, the question is not new for us. That's, of course, we have to answer it since the beginning of the working of our platform. Yeah, what is the answer for this statement? I would say, of course, you can furthermore in the future ask your friends or family, do you know the right doctor for me? I guess the most people will do this. What we know from studies, the most people today are additionally searching at the internet for additional information about who is the right doctor. Because when I have a problem with my knee, for example, who can I ask in my surrounding? I need a person who has maybe the same problem or similar problem in the past. And if I have not, I don't know who can give me a better recommendation for a good doctor. So that's the idea. We want to use the knowledge of the big masses. Yeah, that's just the simple approach of all review platforms. So you're using the experience of many people. And I would say this is a progress, basically. And we should, of course, I say that, but we should keep it because it's a progress. It helps us, basically. But that's the reason why we have to keep very, a lot of down in this terms of created AI content of AI. For me, the most important thing that we have to focus on more than in the past is to ensure that the content that you are reading, when you're reading a review, that this comes from a true person. So we have to focus on the verification of the author of a review. of course, in the past we have do it. Some platforms are more, other less. Historically, in this question, we as Yamida, we, as I mentioned before, had from the beginning on a special interest to ensure that we offer only true content. So we have in the past and also for now and for the future made many invests to ensure this in terms of technical methods, in terms of employees who are working day by day to ensure this true content and so on. And so that's for me in the future, it's more important than ever to ensure that the content comes from a true person, from a real person, and that's what we should improve in the future. From my view, is we have to make it more transparent, because the only example that I know that's really well known in this area is Amazon, with their label of verified buy. Yeah, it's a verified deal, or I don't know what the wording is on this label, but you know it. And I think we are also thinking about this, that we highlighting if we make additional efforts in a single case for verifying the patient. We have such projects with you, Sebastian. Of course, we try to use the passport feature in the German passport. Maybe it's a way. And at our platform, we have this, what I show you, the feature. If a patient has booked on our platform an appointment, then of course we can also say this is a true patient. So this is, but the thing is that we need more reviews than we can generate with appointments. So we have to think about two additional measures, and not only to use the appointment booking for verifying the patients. We need additional measures for it. That's for me the most crucial point in this question for the next years.
And I think this is a fairly general challenge that, yes, of course, you can build trust by tying digital transactions or reviews to the physical world, or to a transaction in the physical world. But you're paying the price, if you like, of a much lower volume yes, compared to reviews and content you get without being tied to the physical world. I'd like to pick up on another comment or question in the chat. There was a question, well, what is the reasons of recent improvements? Is it better algorithms? Is it more CPU or GPU power? Is it better data cleaning? And I think that might be something that you could comment on, Emmanuel, in terms of, well, what are we going to expect in terms of lower computational requirements? Are we at some point going to be able to run models like GPT-3 or GPT-4 underneath ChatGPT on just a box underneath our desk without having to spend 10 or 20 million euros in compute to train those models? How far is the optimization going to go? What's your guess there?
So okay, so this is an interesting question, because it's been an ongoing battle within the, like, there's two camps within the AI field, within the research field, and I shared an article in the chat called "The Bitter Lesson," written by Richard Sutton, who is a reinforcement learning a professor and well known within the field, about the bitter lessons that he's picked up within the field, which has been that. In summary, is that there's always been this question about whether, just to contextualize it, when it comes to doing AI research, whether we should carry out this additional mental effort of specializing and learning how the brain works, and building these specialized models that mimic how humans do speech or how humans write, break down language based on grammatical rules, and formally like learn the rules of language and impart them in a system, like almost hard code them in a system. And what he says has been the bitter lesson of his entire career has been that almost always, after some time, the compute and amount of data scales to the level that a general algorithm that doesn't have any kind of formal structures imparted on it, any kind of like specialist knowledge about how the brain works, like a neural network, for example, it's like algorithms that depend on improvements in compute and more data. Those, because data and compute seems to, be accelerating at a much faster pace than our ability to understand how we do what we do. Our ability to understand intelligence means that a lot of these methods have become so good that they now completely outperform everyone who used to, for example, hand code features for, at some point, for computer vision, which is the AI systems that feed the world. There used to be aspects where we'd actually hard code how they should see the world. It have features that are designed by human hands. And now that is all completely learned, because at some point, if you have enough data and enough computing power to process that data, then you can learn those rules in some way. You lose a little bit of control, but you gain generalization ability, in that the mental effort to do the kind of things that you're doing now with vision systems, with ChatGPT, to create that, the amount of rules that you'd have to do, you'd have to impart to get the level of performance and the level of flexibility is completely out of the realm of anything else we can do right now. There's Eliza, I believe, who was the best hard-coded chatbot that you can find online, and it talks really, really well, but I can't get Eliza to write me a speech about, I don't know, Shakespeare trying to take over France, Well, ChatGPT can, and that's what I mean, is that and I really encourage people to read the bitter lesson, because it kind of comes from a perspective of a lifelong senior AI researcher who's seen the entire wave, so to speak, has been through all the AI cycles, or the AI hype and the AI laws, and says that in the end, always it seems that more compute and more data beats out having to really understand anything about what we're doing with the, with hard-coded methods that imitate how we do things. Now,
yeah, go on.
What that means specifically for your question is that even the models that we do have right now, at some point, are going to be something you can run. And this is basically the bitter lesson, is that right now it costs $1 million to run, 2.5 million, I believe, was the lowest cost if you're able to do one training run with everything perfect to train ChatGPT. If you include the research costs, then you're looking at the tens of millions. But that costs several million right now. And if we rely on Moore's law, which is what's been driving a lot of the innovation, it's been Moore's law, it's been more data. And if you assume that continues to happen, then 10 years from now, you should be able to run this underneath your desktop, which means that everyone will have this capability underneath their desktop. In fact, even within the AI research community right now, there's been so much effort and progress in the last 2 months that you can run ChatGPT-like models with a single GPU, and people are doing so. Right now, you go to Reddit, and people are doing so. Regular people who are fans of the technology have deployed this system outside of OpenAI for their own personal needs, which is absolutely incredible.
And the consequence of that, of course, is that the safeguards that are being discussed and that companies like OpenAI put in place become completely irrelevant, because you can train your own model and get it to do all the sinister things that a publicly available model might try with varying levels of success to filter out. And we're nearly getting to the end, and I know Mark has asked me to reserve the final 2 minutes for a quick overview into the next ones. I'd like to conclude with a very short question and a request for a short answer to you, Claire. If I change perspective, if I put myself into the shoes of a new blogger who starts posting online and who wants to build credibility in that flood of fakes or suspected fakes, what would you recommend to such a blogger in terms of how can they gain trust? How can they gain credibility and an audience?
Good question. And I think actually last week, this will be brief, but last week I was on a panel with the Associated Press, and they brought in a hyper-local news leader from California who had been using ChatGPT to tell stories about local news events or to scan minutes and to tailor the story to the interest of his folks in the community. So the first thing is it can be used for creative purposes. The first thing I would say is think about why you might want to use these tools. So before you just implement them because they seem really trendy, what are they doing for you? Are they allowing you to be more creative, to save time, to capture more kind of personas of your audience and to write for a broader audience? So are they doing these benefits for you? And at the same time, I would include a section on your website that actually explains how you're thinking about it. So rather than just deploying these systems and saying, look, I'm using ChatGPT or never using it, I think showing your introspection is a really meaningful mechanism of disclosure. I wouldn't say that person needs to create a policy, but just talking about how they've thought about it is really meaningful and I think helps breed trust.
Thank you, Claire. And also thank you, Michael, and thank you, Emmanuel, for a very wide-ranging, fascinating discussion. I think we could keep on for another hour, 2-3 hours, but we're getting to the end of time, and I'd like to hand back over to you, Mark.
Yes, thank you so much to all the panelists. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Sebastian, for the really inspiring discussion. I love the energy, and thanks for all the insights you just shared. So let me finish this tech talk and close it off with just a remark on the next events that we are going to host. There's a bunch of stuff coming up. In March, we're going to have 2 more events on. One is about the supply chain of AI. So it's not necessarily AI for supply chains, but rather how is it developed? And it's going to be a discussion that is going to be hybrid. So we're going to have it physical at KI Park, but also online. So feel free to attend. And there's going to be another tech talk on another really important topic that is synthetic data. So make sure to check that out. Sign up on using our website. And lastly, May is going to be the AI month in all Germany. There are going to be so many different events happening, and we also gonna have in Berlin 1 week entitled with various events. So make sure to check out Deutscher KI Monat Mai as well for more events. And if you like that tech talk, if you want to learn more, feel free to sign up to our newsletter as well. If you want to learn more about our membership, shoot me a message or check out our website as well. We have a lot of different events going on, and I'm very happy to see some of the faces again and read some of the names as well. So that's being said, again, thank you for the great panel, and thanks to all the audience for joining us today, and looking forward to see you again. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.